Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So today we're back on this 2000 Jeep Grand Cherokee Laredo, and we're going to be patching a hole in the body so we can get this past inspection. So we're going to be making a custom patch panel. Let me show you what we got. So here it is. Sorry I didn't take a video of it before to show you how bad it was actually rusted out. But as you can see, it was a big hole right here in the center, and I've been using this Jeep a little bit, driving it just as I work things out on it, and this was all flaked up, and it was a real safety hazard for anyone that would have needed to got in the back seat. So I went ahead because it was all cut up. So you can see how large of a hole it was, and it went all the way through to the inner structure. But I cut it out everywhere to where it was solid. So the next thing I got to do is, you see I went ahead and I got this door seal away from it. So just kind of assessing the area, seeing what's going to do. This patch panel is not going to be too bad. I am going to have to go and cut a little bit further back, probably right up against that pinch weld. And that's where our inside panel here is going to be our solid weld point. But there's a few things I got to do first before I start getting that cleaned up and made. So I got to unhook the battery for one. So one, we don't drain it and we don't have any instance of blown fusers or something, just a safe precaution. The next thing we got to do is get this wheel off, because we need to get this trim off, because as you can see, we're going to have to weld right to it. Plus, we're not quite sure what's hiding under it. And then finally, we'll have to do what we can on the inside here to patch this wheel well. So the wheel's off. You can see the rest of this panel is really nice. It's just this one section here. And what I found when I was cutting, you'll see I think there's a little rust hole that started and they filled it full of foam. Well, you can see mud and stuff's getting back in between the seal. That just packed in it and made it rust out faster. So the foam might get you by, but in the long run, it's gonna cause you a lot more trouble. So now the next thing I'm gonna do is, you can see I got a little bit more this inner panel that's down here rusted out, and I got this chunk right here. So I'm gonna get my cutting wheel, and then I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna cut the rest of this section here out, come up through here, and just go ahead and notch that back. And then I'm gonna go ahead and get in the inside here with the tire off. Get you in there a little bit. You can see I just need to cut up and over and get rid of that section. And then after that point, I'm gonna put my sanding wheel on, my flapper disc, and just go ahead and just give everything a nice little cleaned edge here, so I'll have a good spot to weld to. All right, so obviously I should probably cover this up better, but I got to do a whole clean on this vehicle anyways. But as you can see, they bonded over before, so a little bit of a place came out there, but not too crazy. Everything cleaned up pretty well. Up underneath here, I don't know, they use some body sealer or something. It's old flapper wheel's having a hard time cutting through that, but we'll tackle that here in a minute. We'll get this front outside piece made first, and then we'll see what we can do with the inside. So now at this point, basically, we have to make a template. So, get you positioned here. What I'm gonna do is get me a sheet of paper and put it, or a piece of cardboard or something, and we'll put it right up against here, because we know that this part right here, for the most part, is gonna be flat. And then we'll curve it, and then we'll make that sharp bend, and then a sharp bend. So what I'll do is I'll get that piece of paper first, and then that'll give me my total. I'll conform it to everything I need, and that'll give me a pretty good template for what I need to cut out of the sheet metal itself. All right, since there's a lot going on here, here's the patch panel. As you see, it's coming along. Got the curve in it here, the curve here, and then I'm getting it lined up. But as I weld it and it gets hot, I'll be able to take my body hammers and be able to shape it a little bit better. But as far as hand shaping, that's what it looks like. And how I done that was a series with this vise, those body hammers. So you see me marking it and keep marking it. I was marking it with the body lines. And then this curve that's in this, that's a little bit there, I used the back of this hammer and basically knocked it to curve it down. And you seen the cardboard template I made. All I did with it was just get it for the shape. So once you get your initial shape with your cardboard, always cut it a little bit wider so when I come over here I can trim it down. Excuse me. So then you see me bending and shaping and cutting. That's what I was using, is just some tin snips and a body hammer and that vise you see. And I was just basically just going through and kept working it till I get in the shape. So you can see I made body line mark there and a body line mark there. One in the middle of this body line. And then over here these edges. And then again these edges. Now these will line up better, as you can see me holding it, once I get this shape up here down. And what I'll do now is this is an old piece of metal I had, as you can see. It's collected some moisture. But what I'll do is I'm going to go ahead and take and flatten this side down flat. You can see it's kind of curled everywhere. And then I'm going to get my welder ready. And I'm going to go ahead and clean this surface up around it to get it ready to weld. And I'm going to start back here with just some light tacks. So I'm going to fit it right up underneath this lip. Like so. And I'm going to get these body lines flush here, just like that. And I'll push on it. I'll weld here, and I'll push and I'll weld, and it'll give me that body line. And then I can work it from the back side to start giving it the shape. And I'll get as close as I can, but of course, as with anything, we'll have to use just a little bit of Bondo to get everything seam sealed up. But when I'm done, this should be just, looks like a regular piece of body. So let's make it happen. Alright guys, I didn't show you the welding process just to protect the camera and stuff. I only got one, so I don't need to damage it. But right there it is. You can see, looks like bubblegum weld, but that's because I spot welded it and jumped around and connected all the spot welds. So I'll go back and sand those flush there with that sanding disc. And then I'll show you what it looks like smoothed down, and you'll get a better idea of how the panel is shaped. But pretty much flows with the contour. So let me get that flattened out and show you what it looks like. Alright guys, so there it is, grounded down. You see I got a little bit of the weld left on the side. I'm really not too concerned about getting in there because I will put some mud over it. But all in all, not bad. Looks pretty good from this angle. So I was just wanting to show you before I degrease it. And then I'm going to go ahead and throw the first coat of mud over it. And I've got the other side that's in good shape. So what I'll do is I got the contour. I'll press it down on that side over there and then bring it over here and make sure I can get that same shape in it. Alright guys, so here it is with the first round of body filler on it. I put it on thick. I didn't have a good spreader. I left it in the other garage. But it's just a base coat. What I'll do is I'll hit it with the heavy sander once it's done drying to give it some shape. And then we'll go through, and here's my body contour tool. You see I kind of took and measured the other side, and you can tell that it's not too far off. You really can't see much light in between it. So you set that gap down in it. Try to show you there. You can see a little bit, but that's just because of the roughness of that Bondo. But we'll smooth that down, and you'll get a good look at what it looks like all polished up. But just give you a reference, I took my body contour measurement with that tool from this side. So once I get real down to it, what I have to do is take some measurements from here down and mark me locations probably an inch apart to make sure that I match this contour just right. Because you can see it's got a little jet out here. But, get back to this one. And that little jet out's like right here. So you see you have to give it a little curve in right there. Nothing crazy. You can already see the outline of it. So, yep, let's let that dry. All right, guys, so you can see after sanding that first bit of body filler, most of it's gone because I showed you how I was using the contour tool and going in. So you can see how I got that jet out and then coming back in. So you see I had to get rid of a lot of it to follow the contour, which I figured I would, but that's okay because I had to build up this edge. But now what I'll do is skim it in, and I'll skim out, and then I'll skim smooth, and then we'll start doing a hand sand on this because we're getting down to the really the nitty gritty and to get it lined out really smooth. All right, guys, so there is the finished product as far as the first sanding goes. So you can see the original. You remember this was all bare metal, and then this was the original. You see there was just some places where it was low, and then like I said, I skim coated it, which I'm for sure there's gonna be some touch up places, because you can see right here I got back down to the metal where it's a little high. So I have to see how this turns out, but I got it cleaned off, and the first thing I'm gonna do is take some etching primer that for bare metal, and I'm gonna hit all these bare metal spots with just a little squirt on each one of them. You don't want to coat the whole thing because it is for etching metal and it doesn't work good on the primer. All right, so I got the self-etching primer on. This is what I use there, and just like I said, I just hit it in those bare metal places. And what I meant to say, which I see when I got a hit here, but what I meant to say is self-etching and Bondo, it's made for etching metal, so try not to coat the whole thing because we'll do that with a high build. But I'm gonna go ahead and hit that, and I'm actually gonna give this about 30 minutes to dry because it is a little cooler in my garage. But typically once that's dried to a touch, you're ready for a top coat. And if you've got to recoat self-etching primer, usually 2 to 3 minutes, it's ready for a recoat. So I'm gonna hit this, let it dry for 30 minutes, and then I'm gonna primer the whole thing with a high build primer. All right, guys, so there you can see I sprayed the filler primer. And that's what that looks like here. So I'm gonna give that a couple minutes to dry, probably like 5 or so. And then I'm gonna hit it with, I just got a paint that I don't have a lot of, it's just some trim and bumper paint. So what I'm gonna do is lightly mist this black over it. And then once all this dries, which I'll give it probably, honestly, I'll probably give it an hour to dry with with the temperature it is. Let me show you on down to the side here a little bit better. So you can see I got some unevenness there, and you see a lot more of this when you actually get to the sanding and spraying it, because this gloss kind of shows you the edge. So you can see I've got a little overlap there, a little pin there, some pinholes here, so, and some more there. But then what I'll do is mist this with the black, and so when I block sand it, I'll see my highs and my low places, and that'll allow me the ability to sand them all down flat, or find the places I need to add a little bit of filler to get it all contoured back out. All right, guys, so here we are with the guide coat on. I looked on the back of the can, it actually said allow 3 to 4 hours before dry sanding, but I'm gonna hit it here and try. If it ends up gumming the paper up too much, I will have to go ahead and wait and let it actually cure out. All right, guys, so here it is with that first sanding done. I did have to wait a couple hours for it to dry because it was gumming up, but you can see a low spot. Everywhere where there's black, there's low spots. And I hit some high spots that I had to knock down with the hammer, but you can see all these little low spots, and then come out here, you can see this center's low. So the next step is mix up a new batch of Bondo, and what we'll do is I'll take my rough grit sandpaper, basically cut those areas out, get all the paint out of them, and then add that Bondo in as I go along. And what that'll do is that'll fill those in. I'll sand them down, and then I'll hit it again with primer, and check it again with a light skim coat and a 320 sand. So this here, I sanded with 220, so I'm working my scratches out as I get further and further out to make sure that this is a nice and smooth surface. Typically, when you're sanding the body like this, 600 grit's good. So I'll probably take this out to like the 320 and then prime it, then wet sand, and then it'll be ready for a top coat. But I'll wet sand at like 600. So that Bondo got put in that I showed you where I hit those low spots, and then I went ahead and done the exact same process again. So once I filled that Bondo in, it dried, I coated it with another thing of high build primer, let it dry, then I misted it with some red this time, just some other can paint I had that sanded better than that bumper trim paint. So once I did that, I let it dry again, and then I block sanded it one more time, and you can see there's a little bit of a low spot there, and maybe just a smidge of a one there, but honestly, that's good enough for me on this. If this was gonna be like a show car or something, I'm obviously gonna keep taking that down until it is perfectly flat. Now, I'm doing the same method back here on this piece that I was showing you and the other ones. So that big dent that was there, I've all but got it knocked down, and you can see there's a high spot on it. But I've actually ran out of Bondo. I just had a little tub of it. So I got to pick up some more of it. But the inside there's done. You can see that new panel back inside there I made. Now what we're going to do is hit this again with some high build primer, and we're going to let that fully dry 3 to 4 hours, which will be overnight for this. And then we'll come back and we'll just simply wet sand it with 600. And when I wet sand, I'm going to go ahead and wet sand out to all the areas that I'm going to coat with some red and some clear, because when that dries, we'll have to buff it in and blend it the best we can. Now this paint's going to be a little old. It's really going to be hard to blend at, especially with me doing this out of some rattle cans. But I'll show you how this ends up. Thought I'd grab my camera real quick and show you here with that first layer primer. You can see how nice and smooth this thing is. You can see the nice contour, just like the other one, down through the front, and of course down the side. So you can tell a lot with that gloss how it's going to look, but I think it's going to look really good, especially for, you're only going to be able to see this outside piece, but when you open the door, it's going to look nice. All right, guys, so I skipped some steps here that I didn't show you because it's the basic steps. So I did a 600 grit wet sand with water, and that got me the nice, smooth, ready to prep surface. And I took that wet sand and took it out a little bit. You can see a little bit of that overspray right here. So my goal is I want to wet sand this outside with probably like 1,000, and then just step it up to 2 a little bit right here, and then I'm gonna buff it and hopefully kind of blend in where I went over a little bit. You can kind of see, it's a tough angle. You've seen it better there. There you can see some of the overspray, but what I did was blend it up through here so you can't see the paint line. And I blended it. You can see where I stopped here. I should be able to buff that and you won't be able to see it. But I actually, because I didn't have a lot of paint, I found some old red that I had that was cardinal red, and I hit that with a base coat. So what that did was take up some of the gray. It covered the gray with another shade of red. That way it was easier to add the actual red. And this was the red that I used right here. As you can see, PR4 is the paint coat on it. I bought this stuff here. It was actually pretty expensive. It was $50 for that custom mix from ERA Paints. And it came with clear coat. But the match isn't too bad. I done that fender up there with it. So you're going to be able to tell a little bit where this paint job's older. But I think the blend did really nice. So right there is almost the final product, minus some wet sand and buffing. So This is the other side. I just got done wiping it down, so you can get an idea of how it looks. So pretty much I think is a pretty good match. So the next thing is we're gonna let it dry overnight. Actually probably get a couple days in it. And I will, in 24 hours, I'll take and throw that side piece back on, which is over here somewhere. Throw that back on, bolt that side skirt back in, then I can wipe this thing down, put the tire on, and then we're just gonna wait and let that dry some more. And I'm gonna let it keep going, let it keep drying, if I can get it out, before I glue this gasket back on, and then I'll do the buff. All right, guys, that's it for this video. You have to go and check out the other video of me doing the cut in and buff and blend. I showed on the rear panel, so it's a little bit better. But you guys follow, subscribe, follow me on Instagram, Mustang Jackson 67. Until next time, let's keep building.